Okay, so I think we're going to make a start, and I think people will keep joining us as we go along. But let's make a start now. So, hello everybody. We're so pleased to welcome you all to this launch event of the 80 Plus initiative, and we extend an especially warm welcome to all of our participants who are joining us from Gaza today. I'm Alex Palanak, and I'm one of the 80 Plus directors, and will be moderating this webinar today. And I'm joined by the other three directors on the board, Ashraf Hamad, Khawla Badwan, and Ahmed Alaga, who you will be hearing from during the course of this event. So before we start, I'd like to go through a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made publicly available via our website and social media channels afterwards. This is so that the message can reach a wider audience, to people who weren't able to make it here today. We've set it so that participants are not able to unmute themselves, because this can be disruptive in such a large webinar. Only the speaker's video and audio will appear in the recording, so participants shouldn't appear in the recording itself. Although you're not able to unmute yourselves, we do encourage you to make use of the chat box, to introduce yourselves, and to use throughout the webinar. If you have any questions to put to the speakers, can we ask you to use the question and answer function instead of the chat box if possible? So this will ensure that your questions don't get lost in the stream of the chat. And if you have a question for a specific person, it would be really helpful if you could state who that question is for. And questions will be answered in the last 20 minutes or so of the webinar. And we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. And finally, can we ask everyone to keep all communication polite and respectful? In terms of what to expect in the next 80 minutes or so, you're going to find out about the vision and the mission of 80 Plus. You'll hear about how the 80 Plus model works. You'll hear from academics and students from the UK and from Gaza, and you'll find out how to get involved in the scheme in various different ways. And then we will finish with some time for questions and answers. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions coming up. So now it's my pleasure to hand over to our first speaker, who is the founder of 80 Plus and the chair of the board of directors, Ashraf Hamad. So over to you, Ashraf.
Thank you very much, Alex, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. We are joining from different cities, different institutions, different backgrounds, but I believe today we are all connected by one simple belief, that is education matters. I want to start my speech with a short story. So back on the 20th of June, 2012, just before midnight, my wife and I were traveling back to Gaza after we did Umrah in Saudi Arabia. As you may know, Palestinians from Gaza need to stop by Egypt. And while we were waiting in the international Cairo airport, I thought that I need to connect to the Wi-Fi and check my email. That was a moment I will never forget. There was a message from Said Foundation telling me that I was selected to receive the award to study a master's in the UK. Such an email has changed my life forever. Since then, I have helped hundreds of Palestinian and non-Palestinian students to reach their academic goals and study in the UK. I simply follow the rule of pay it forward. I try to repay the acts of kindness I received in the past for others who are currently trying to achieve their goals. It is a cycle, a good cycle of kindness, generosity, and inspiration. Since the start of the Gaza genocide, I joined forces with many initiatives and groups that aim to support education in Gaza. And then 80 Plus happened. For many months, the initiative has been developing quietly through conversations, through questions, through moments of doubts, and of course, moments of clarity. After the destruction of universities in Gaza and the devastating loss of academics across all Gazan institutions, I kept asking myself one persistent question. What can we do? from where we are that is practical, responsible, scalable, and sustainable. Not symbolic, not temporary, not reactive, something real. And 80 plus is our answer. In Gaza, universities have been destroyed, lecture halls reduced to rubble, labs erased, libraries burned, but perhaps even more painful, many academics, professors, researchers, mentors have been killed. And when you lose educators, you don't not only lose individuals, you lose experience, you lose supervision, you lose intellectual memory. You actually lose entire academic lineage. A generation of students risks losing not just their degrees, but their futures. And rebuilding education is not optional. It is essential. It is essential for dignity, for recovery, and for long-term stability. Education is not luxury in times of a crisis. It is actually infrastructure. So what is 80 Plus? 80 Plus is a UK-based initiative run by volunteers that brings people and universities together to fund one-year master's scholarships for talented students from Gaza. Our mission is that we aim to place at least one scholarship in as many UK universities as possible, creating a nationwide movement of support, connection, and shared responsibility. And this mission is driven by our vision, which is a future where talented students from Gaza have equal access to world-class education, empowering them to rebuild their communities and inspire hope for generations to come. As you may have seen, our logo carries a butterfly, and that is intentional. A butterfly effect reminds us that small actions, when multiplied, travel far. And here comes our model. It is simple, scalable, and sustainable. If 80 people or plus give £30 per month for a whole year, we can fully fund a master's degree at a UK university. But one might ask, £30 a month for a whole year is just too much. And our response is that no worries at all. We understand that among our supporters are university students and others who can afford £10 or maybe less. And as they say in England, every little helps. Small contributions, collective action will definitely make real impact. Some of you might ask why this model matters. Well, many UK universities generously pledged emergency scholarships over the past year. But emergency funding is, by definition, temporary. So what happens when those pledges end? 80 Plus offers a sustainable approach. We ask universities to consider offering a tuition fee waiver. And in return, a local volunteer committee linked to that university city works to raise funds for living costs, visa, travel, and essential support. And this creates partnerships, and it also creates community involvement. This year, we are piloting this model in 3 cities, Manchester, Leicester, and Dundee. And with your support, we hope to expand to more universities across the UK next year. What else 80 Plus aims to do? Well, a proportion of funds raised may also support students who are continuing their degrees in Gaza, often in devastating conditions. And to achieve this objective, we will liaise with local universities in Gaza. I'm very delighted to have representatives from 2 of the largest universities in Gaza with us today, and they will shortly share their thoughts and ideas with us. Now, there are 2 important points I want to highlight today. The first one is, one might ask, does 80 Plus encourage people to leave Gaza or contribute to brain drain? And this is very thoughtful and understandable concern. 80 Plus does not exist to encourage permanent migration or brain drain. Our purpose is to protect access to higher education at a time when universities in Gaza have been destroyed and academic life has been severely disrupted. The The scholarships we support are one-year taught master's programs. They are designed to provide advanced knowledge, skills, and international exposure, not to relocate individuals permanently. Our aim is to equip students with the tools, networks, and expertise that can contribute to rebuilding academic and professional life connected to Gaza and its people. Recent events demonstrated something deeply important. When the Rafah border reopened in the recent days and weeks, many Palestinians returned to Gaza immediately, despite the devastation, despite the destruction, despite the hardship. This reflects a powerful truth, that the Palestinian people of Gaza remain profoundly committed to their land, their families, and their communities. 80 Plus is built on that same understanding. We believe that investing in education abroad is not an act of departure. It is actually an act of preparation. It equips the students with advanced knowledge and global networks so that when rebuilding accelerates, there are qualified, confident, and internationally connected graduates ready to contribute. History shows that education abroad does not automatically lead to permanent departure. In many cases, it strengthens capacity, builds long-term partnerships, and creates bridges that benefit home communities, whether through return, collaboration, or sustained engagement. In a context where universities have been destroyed and many academics have been lost, protecting and developing human capital is not brain drain. It is knowledge preservation. 80 Plus is about safeguarding educational continuity today so that rebuilding tomorrow is possible. And secondly, I want to speak directly to those joining us today from Gaza. First of all, thank you. Thank you for making the effort to find a safe place, to secure internet access, to take the time and energy to join this event. We do not take that lightly. On behalf of the entire 80 Plus team, we truly appreciate your presence. I understand that many of you have important and urgent questions. Questions about application process, about deadlines, about participating universities, about available courses, about money, and many more. These are valid questions, and I understand them. Let me reassure you that something very important. Everything we are building through 80 Plus is for you, for talented, hardworking candidates in Gaza whose education has been interrupted, but whose potential remains strong. At this stage, we do not have yet all the detailed answers. This is a new initiative, and some agreements and processes are still being finalized. But please know this, as soon as details are confirmed, we will communicate them directly to you. In the coming days and weeks, we will build our mailing list and send updates to everyone who have registered. We also will publish all confirmed information on our website and social media platforms, so please do not worry. When something is confirmed, you will hear it directly from us. We are here to support you. We are here to guide you. And we are building this carefully so it is sustainable and fair. Thank you again for your patience, for your resilience, for your commitment to continuing your education under such difficult circumstances. We see you, and this initiative exists because of you. Now, I cannot close this speech without expressing my deep gratitude to the people behind 80 Plus, to our board of directors. Thank you. To those who believed in this idea from day one, when it was just a conversation, just a question, just a possibility. Alex, thank you. Ahmad, thank you. Khawla, thank you. Your commitment, your patience, your trust have carried this forward. And also, I want to acknowledge those who worked hard behind the scenes. Shadi, thank you for the many late nights you spent building and rebuilding the 80 Plus website. I know I have asked for countless edits, revisions, and the new versions, and yet you kept going. Today, we have a website that we are truly proud of. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you to Inas, who recently joined us as a volunteer supporting our social media. Your time and energy are already making a difference. 80 Plus is not built by one person, it is built by a team. And I am grateful for each one of you. So, what comes next? In the weeks and months ahead, we will focus on several key priorities. First, we will continue raising awareness about 80 Plus. And here I invite every one of you to take part, whether you are in the UK or in any other country around the world. Engage with our posts, share our updates, and talk about 80 Plus in your personal and professional networks. Let people know about us, regardless of background. Let people know that all of us, regardless of background, can help enable education in Gaza. Second, we will support the creation and strengthening of local committees in 3 pilot cities, Manchester, Leicester, and Dundee. I'm very pleased that today we have representatives from each of these cities who will share why they chose to support this initiative. The leadership at the local level is essential to making this model work. Third, we will begin formal conversations with UK universities. We will discuss partnerships, fee waivers, and long-term collaboration. We are hopeful and confident that many UK institutions will join us in our vision, a future where talented students from Gaza have equal access to world-class education. Fourth, we will begin the process of securing charitable status in the UK. At present, 80 Plus is registered as a limited company by guarantee, which means we operate as a non-for-profit organization. However, we aspire to obtain full charitable status in the coming months. This will strengthen our governance, increase transparency, and open additional opportunities for fundraising and partnerships at national and international levels. And finally, we aim to establish an advisory board composed of Palestinian and non-Palestinian experts in areas relevant to our mission: higher education, governance, philanthropy, and community leadership. We will share more details about this in due course. What you are witnessing today is not a finished structure. It is a foundation. And like all foundations, it must be built carefully, responsibly, and collectively. Thank you for being part of this beginning. Let me leave you with this thought. When universities fall, when books are burned, when professors are silenced, the easiest response is despair. But education has always survived through people, through individuals who refused to let knowledge disappear, through communities who decided that rebuilding would begin with learning. 80 Plus is not just about funding a scholarship. It is about refusing to accept intellectual erasure. It is about saying calmly, responsibly, and collectively, education will continue. And it begins with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that education is worth protecting. And thank you for helping us rebuild knowledge together. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ashraf. And you said lots of thank yous, but I'd like to say thank you to you as well for having the vision and the inspiration to set this scheme up, and to have done so much in such a short time. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so now in this next part of the webinar, we're going to move on to hear from academics and students from the UK and from Gaza. And we're going to start by hearing from Dr. Mohammed Al-Baba, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Dentistry at Al-Azhar University, Gaza. So Dr. Mohammed, I'm just going to unmute you. I'm not sure if this is working. I've asked you to unmute. Aha. Okay, I think you're unmuted now.
Good afternoon.
Brilliant. Hello and welcome, Dr. Mohammed.
It's clear.
Over to you. I think he might have frozen. Dr. Mohammed, can you hear us? Can you try saying something? I think it looks like the connection is a bit poor at the moment. Can you try saying something, Dr. Mohammed? Yeah, I think the internet might have dropped a bit. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, I think maybe we will need to go to the next speaker and then we can come back to Dr. Mohammed if the internet picks up a little bit by then. Okay, so can we go next to Kamal Ashfaq, who's the president of the Student Union at Manchester Metropolitan University?
Can you see?
Hi, Kamal.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah. Hi,
Perfect.
welcome.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me involved in this. It's honestly a real pleasure to be. And to be honest, I didn't prepare a speech like Ahmed did, and he did absolutely amazing for that. But just to give you a bit of like a background of how I got involved in this, I got to know Ahmed and then I got to know Hawla through a stall that we were at. And they saw a picture of me on the board of governors because by being the president, I was also one of the governors at the university. And I was wearing a keffiyeh on that board, on that picture. And they told me about how they had told their little daughter about me. And that had meant a lot. And it just gave me the strength to deal with everything that came after that. And it just kept being a reminder of the effect of every little thing and how important that all is, regardless of how meaningless it might be or it might seem. So some of the context behind that involvement was that we had two Gazan students that had unconditional offers at our university. And we spent 2 weeks trying to buy off their lives, and we were not unfortunately able to do so. One of the students being Fatin, Brother Ahmed's sister. And it was a situation where we were working with multiple charities, trying to get around different ways of funding this, but with the university not knowing the process because they hadn't done it before and not being willing to provide any discounts, that was a very heartbreaking unsuccess. And that brings us to today, where we're launching something practical, hopeful, long term, and as has been already said, very sustainable. This is a community-funded postgraduate scholarship, and it's not built through institutions, but through people that have decided to act together. So I want to begin by speaking about why this matters. Higher education is never just about a degree. It's about stability, dignity, and the ability to contribute meaningfully to society. For graduates from universities in Gaza, higher education represents something even more fundamental. It represents continuity. Universities in Gaza have continued to educate students despite extraordinary disruptions. One of the challenges that I had to answer when making the case for these students was, will they even be able to settle in after being through what they had? And my answer was that we just can't underestimate our Gazan students who got incredibly challenging and incredibly contentious offers to begin with in such incredibly extraordinarily hard circumstances. These students have studied in conditions that most of us would find unimaginable. Their infrastructures were destroyed. They had faced multiple displacements. They had incredible financial instability, and they were uncertain about the future, even if that meant the next second. And yet they graduated, and yet they applied, and yet they got the offers. They produced research, they built expertise, and they persisted. When a student from Gaza completes their undergraduate degree, that achievement is not just personal, it's communal. It represents the resilience. It represents intellectual life continuing under pressure. and it represents Sumud because resilience is not a good enough word for that. But undergraduate education alone is often not enough to fully unlock that potential. Postgraduate education allows graduates to specialize, to research deeply, to develop the expertise that enables them to teach, to innovate, and to lead. It transforms a capable graduate into someone who can shape institutions, develop policy, advance science, contribute to public health, engineering, education, and countless other fields. I met two graduates that came to the University of Manchester, our neighbour university, to complete their studies. And one of them is doing his PhD on the difference between the Western concept of resilience and the Palestinian concept of sumud. And his explanation there kind of has stayed with me. Resilience does not seem like a good enough word anymore. It's smooth, it's different. It's the resilience, not after it, not during it because you don't have other option, but during it, being resistant towards it all and through it all because you can see the end and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, regardless of how dark you might get. So the sustaining access to postgraduate education matters because it determines whether talent is fully realized or interrupted. Without financial instability, many talented graduates simply cannot continue. The fees, the living costs, the visa requirements are practical barriers, as we have witnessed over and over again. And practical barriers are often the only thing standing between the potential and the possibility. When access to postgraduate education is disrupted, it is not just an individual opportunity that is lost. It is future teaching capacity. It is research capacity. It is community capacity. Postgraduate education is a multiplier. One scholar can teach hundreds of students over a career. One researcher can develop work that impacts thousands. One expert returning home can help rebuild systems that serve entire communities. This is why sustaining this access matters. It is not symbolic, it is structural. And sustaining access requires consistency. The one-off gestures are not enough. What makes postgraduate study possible is the stability, is knowing that tuition is covered, that living costs are secure, that research can be pursued without constant uncertainty. That is why this model is built around sustained, community-supported funding. We are not asking for something abstract. We are asking for something practical. Small, recurring donations, small, recurring contributions that collectively remove real barriers. We are asking for a commitment that transforms individual goodwill into long-term educational access. We are asking people to do their little. If I wish I could help, and bringing that all together, bringing everybody's wishes together into something that actually can make a difference. The scholarship is about ensuring that talent is not wasted because of the circumstances and because of circumstances that are completely unfair. It is about recognizing that intellectual life in Gaza continues and that graduates deserve pathways to deepen their expertise. And that education changes lives, but only when it is accessible. And access is something that can be protected, strengthened, and sustained. And today we are choosing to sustain it, not through large institutions, not through waiting for perfect systems, but through collective action. When individuals choose to act together, opportunity becomes possible. So thank you all for being part of this beginning, and I can't wait to work with you all.
Thank you very much, Kamal, for those powerful words. Okay, so I think we will now try to see if we can hear from Dr. Mohammed Al Baba again. So let's see if your audio is working now, Dr. Mohammed. I don't think we can hear you yet. Can anyone else hear Dr. Mohammed? Is it just a problem at my end? No.
Yes.
Aha. Okay, yes. We heard you then. Okay, do you want to try to speak?
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. So yeah. Welcome,
Okay,
Dr. Mohammed.
this is what we are facing in Gaza. It's a regular meeting, anytime, anywhere. Usually, of course, you can attend these meetings. But in Gaza, due to limited resources, the problems we are facing in internet and electricity and all the situations that we are facing since more than 2 years It's really hard, very hard for our students. My name is Dr. Muhammad Al-Baba. I'm serving as Dean of the Faculty of Dentistry at Al-Azhar University in Gaza. From my position, I see every day what happens when young people are giving the chance to learn. I also see what happens when those chances are taken away. As you know, the Faculty of Dentistry and the majority of Al-Azhar University buildings has been destroyed due to this war. We have losses of our professors, senior doctors, and experienced academics who usually they are the backbone of higher education in Gaza. And we about killing a professor, it's not just one mind that is silenced. It's hundreds of students that they would have taught the research that they would have guided. This is the reality we are confronting, a gap in expertise that threatens very future of academics in Gaza. In my field in dentistry, which is an important field in Gaza, uh, a young dentist, when he graduated from Gaza, of course, they are skilled, they are resilient, but they are desperate to help our people. Without postgraduate studies, master degrees, they cannot become oral surgeon who reconstruct the fractured jaws, or they can't be orthodontist who can rebuild child's smile. They cannot also cannot become a public health specialist who would design prevention programs for our traumatized population. Without advanced training, their potential is capped. Our community loses access to this specialized care. It greatly needs for these specialists. A scholarship for our students, like those who offered by 80 plus team, are so critical for our students and also for our community, especially after what we are facing in Gaza. It's not just a scholarship, it's an investment in the future, in future of Gaza, in the future of our traumatized people. Finally, I would like to thank 80 plus team for their invitation. I kept my speech short as possible because internet connection is unstable, but I will be with you if you need any more information regarding the educational system, what we are facing in Gaza right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed. And it was a real honor to have you joining us here today. And I'm really pleased that that the internet allowed you to join to be able to give your contribution. And I think what you said was so powerful, that of the killing of a professor or a specialist, and all of the knock-on effects that might have, and all of the lost opportunities, not only for that person, but for all of the other people who that person's life would have touched. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so now we are going to move on to hear from Amani Al-Makadma, who is the head of international relations at the Islamic University of Gaza. So Amani, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me and having me with you. I'm so glad to be with you. And yeah, I'm representing the Islamic University of Gaza, which is one of the largest universities in the Gaza Strip. It was established back in 1978, and the current number of students is around 17,000 students from different 11 faculties, ranging from medicine, engineering, nursing, information technology, education, and all other fields. I'm so glad to see also among of the attendees a big number of IUG graduates, and this is how the scholarship is really important, because empowering a person, even if they are outside, they are trying to support and help people resilience and struggle, if we would like, sumud of Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank, and especially Gaza nowadays. At this moment, the education in Gaza is under immense pressure. Universities made decision to resume educational process during war to assure that education is not only about knowledge and teaching, it's also about Palestinian struggle and sumud. Students are trying to continue their learning in the midst of destruction, displacement, loss, profound uncertainty. Yet, despite all of this, they still hold on to the education as a source of hope, dignity, and future possibility. In my position as one who is monitoring the situation of number of scholarships, yes, the number of scholarships that have been declared during the last year, I would say that it had increased, but this year I'm witnessing that the number of scholarships for postgraduates is massively declining, and is dramatically decreasing, and this is really shocking. This is a contradiction, because as the needs of Gaza youth to have grown for opportunities, the number of opportunities available to support them have shrunking. Many traditional scholarship opportunities have become limited, delayed, or no longer accessible. At the same time, more students have ever are facing extreme financial hardship. It's not easy to think about even traveling to the UK and studying in the UK, not because of educational excellency, because most of our graduates are really achieving high grades, but it's the problem of the what my colleague before Komal mentioned, the visa, the NHS fees, the tuition fees, um, the living cost. All of these are really very high, and this people from Gaza will not be able to afford them. So this is why this initiative, I think, is important, because it comes to as a critical time to fill a widening gap. It responds to real need and urgent created by the decline of scholarship opportunities. It recognizes that if this gap is not addressed, many talented and deserving students in Gaza may be forced to suspend or abandon their dreams to continue their postgraduate studies. And I think this is not only a problem with the Palestinian, but I mean, those are very talented people, and they deserve to achieve and attain their dreams. And they need the community support and the global academia support to achieve this their dreams. And yeah, so this is like my reflection on this initiative. It's very important and timely, and thank you everyone who was behind this 80 plus, and to have this coming through, and we are seeing it today as the launching of this initiative. And yeah, we are really looking forward for more and more activities jointly with universities in Gaza. And I like the idea that you directly reach people from inside Gaza Strip, from those institutions. This is really important, because this will strengthen the resilience and the sumud of the Palestinian universities from inside Gaza Strip. And this is the important thing, is to keep those links active and live. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Armani. And yeah, we really appreciate that you've been able to kind of share your take and your kind of expertise in this area with us. yeah, you've done a lot of work in this area yourself with the report that you wrote, Resilience in the Rubble, which has really informed schemes like this in looking at what the needs are at the moment for students and academics and universities in Gaza. And that was a really interesting insight about the scholarships and how the number of scholarships is actually going down at the moment. And so it looks like there's an acute need then for a scheme such as this, which provides a more sustainable funding model for universities to kind of sign up to, basically. Okay, thank you so much. So we are now going to move on to our next speaker, who is Khadija. Khadija Khan, who is the president of the Palestine Society at the University of Leicester. So I'm really pleased to hand over to you now, Khadija.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum, marhaba, hello, my name is Khadija. I'm a third year undergraduate student. I'm on the Leicester team for 80+, but more importantly, I'm an advocate, I'm a student activist, and I have been since I joined my encampment at my university, long before I had the ability to educate myself on anything. For 43 consecutive nights, we slept on a patch of grass, and I will be completely honest with you, I had no hopes of us achieving any of our demands. And despite, at the time we were watching Cardiff Uni, they were divesting, encampments were popping up all over, in other countries almost. But not once in those 43 nights did I expect our actions as a bunch of teenagers protesting on a lawn to hold actual physical, measurable impact on people in Gaza. Now, we used to argue about this on the encampment because some of us would say, what we're doing is pointless. What are we going to achieve? And that internal argument continued. We didn't achieve all of our goals, but the one thing that we did manage, alhamdulillah, was scholarships. And at the time, we were all really, really pleased, but none of us really stopped to process what that meant. And it wasn't until many months later when one of our first scholars, Mahmoud, arrived in the UK that I actually realized that we had the privilege to change in people's entire lives. And that was both amazing and mortifying at the same time. Now, Mahmoud is an absolutely amazing, incredible, talented journalist, author, and as of recent, Allahumma barik, a master's graduate from the University of Leicester, and I could not be more proud. See, you don't need me to tell you that there are no universities left in Gaza. You don't need me to tell you that before the genocide, Gaza had a nearly 100% literacy rate. You don't need me to tell you that Cambridge did a study and most students have lost out on 5 years worth of education. You don't need me to tell you that some of the most brilliant minds out there are in a place where the most innocent forms of life aren't sustained. And as someone who talks a lot and does speeches and says so many words, one thing that I don't normally speak about is my own experience with my own scholarship that I so desperately applied for in secret to escape a cycle of abuse and torture. And had I not got that scholarship, and had I not been able to pursue higher education, I wouldn't be sat in front of you. I wouldn't have survived. And I wouldn't have made it. And that is something that reminds me and just testament to the fact that higher education can change your entire life. And without it, I wouldn't be stood in front of you. I wouldn't have been able to join this initiative. I wouldn't have been in my encampment. I wouldn't have been able to meet the amazing students from Gaza that I've had the honor to be able to meet. I'm honored to be a part of something bigger than myself and actually have the privilege to be able to pay it forward and change entire lives. Now, when I was asked to take over the Palestine Society by our very much Palestinian president, as someone from Al-Quds, as someone who is very much not from Palestine, I was absolutely terrified by the idea of it because I was like, I'm not Palestinian. How can I represent and aid the Palestinian struggle when I've not experienced it? And then our first event rolled around, and so someone came to thank us for all the work that we'd been doing. And I've had this with thanks before, that I can't bring myself to accept thanks for something that is our obligation. It's our duty. It's not something that should be deemed optional. And I later learned this to be one of our new scholarship students, Mohammed. Now, in no fictional dystopian movie plot world would you be able to tell me that what we're doing right now would be deemed optional or problematic or too complicated because of the situation. That wouldn't happen. But it wasn't until that I truly understood the weight of our as a collective. Because suddenly a spontaneous decision that teenage me took alongside her peers was the reason an entire human being was in the same room as me, an entire human life, walking the same corridors as me, sitting in the same creaky lecture theatres that we once had the privilege to complain about. And during my entire time at university, there has been no greater honour than sitting alongside such brilliantly inspirational peers who deserve so much more of the world than we could ever give them, but education is a start and a painfully poetic one at that. Yeah, that's probably all I was going to say. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak as well.
Thank you so much, Khadija. As always, your talk was it was powerful and inspirational, and thank you for your courage and thank you for your passion. And without people like you, we wouldn't have had so many scholarships created in the past couple of years by our universities. The student encampment was such a powerful movement for good, and I think it put our universities to shame. It kind of put quite a lot of academics to shame that it took the students taking action, going into tents and kind of making a big noise about all of this, which is what all of us should be doing. It took that in order to get universities to make some concessions. So yeah, massive thank you for everything that you've done. Okay, so we're going to now move on to our next speaker, who is Dr. Bisan Mohra, who is a student from Gaza currently studying at King's College London. So Bisan, can I ask you to unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi, welcome, Bisan. So handing over to you.
Firstly, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be part of this, really. I'm Bisan Mohra, Palestinian doctor, studying at King's master degree in war and psychiatry. And I want to talk about my story as an evidence of how higher education can really change lives. I was specializing in intensive care and anesthesiology in the Indonesian hospital north of Gaza. And I was working with a great team. We were like a family. It was not just about medicine. It was about leadership, how to manage, situations of life or death with efficiency. And it shaped my personality a lot. But when the genocide started, I was alone in Gaza. My husband was stuck in Egypt with his father. I was going back and forth from the hospital to my parents, dealing with a lot of displacement, a lot of loss of family members and friends. And I was always thinking about evacuation and that I don't want to leave Gaza. But after 6 months, I reached to the point that I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, I'm losing patients for a simple antibiotic, for a simple blood test. And out of despair, I evacuated to Egypt along with my family. And in Egypt, it was an opportunity to really understand and process what was going on, which is a luxury in our situation. A lot of people in Gaza, they don't have the time to process, the time to deal with their emotions, with their losses. And I started working for the future. I wanted to get out of Egypt, to find a future for myself. And I started searching for scholarship because it was my only way to get out of Egypt. And then I met Dr. Ashraf as a, educational advisor. And he asked me a very important question. He asked me, like, what do you dream of? What do you want in the future? And it was like the first time that I'm thinking about my education as not just like applying for the scholarships out of despair, but applying for the scholarship out of power, out of dream to achieve, and out of rebuilding a future for my people. And it was like really transformative. And it changed my view. And even though it made me like realize that finally I get the option to achieve my dream of being like a psychiatrist. So I chose to study war and psychiatry despite I don't have any experience in it. And I was lucky enough to get accepted. Thank God. I want to say that when I moved to the UK, studying this subject was really hard on me and triggering. I like spend 3 to 4 months just adapting to what I'm reading, what I'm seeing. But at the same time, it was like eye-opening because I finally can understand how years and years of oppression, it changed our community. It changed me on every aspect of life. It affected us not just in our education, not just in infrastructure. It affected us also as a human being, how we think of ourselves, how we view the world. And I was lucky enough to get this opportunity. And every day I'm thinking how I can pass this knowledge, this weapon to my people to resist and to fight back. Because mental health was really overlooked in Gaza before even the genocide, and now it's almost like not existing. And I want to say that I was lucky enough. I get the opportunity to get out and to see the world. After being in Gaza for a lot of time, under siege, not seeing the world what it looked like, not even meeting people with different views on the world. And a funny thing that I can now meet Palestinian peoples from the West Bank, from the 48 lands, Syrian Palestinian, Lebanon Palestinians. Now I can meet them and I can see them and I can see even their pain and how we look alike. Because the root of our pain is the same, which is the occupation. And this opportunity that it changed my view on my life. I believe that every student in Gaza deserves this opportunity. Every student in Gaza deserve it because they worked in tents, in unimaginable circumstances. They managed to get scholarships, and yet they denied evacuation. And lastly, I just want to thank Dr. Ashraf, 80 Plus, because it gave me hope again to really see a better future for Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that really powerful talk, Bisan. And yeah, I mean, there was just so much in there to think about, just about the unimaginable all the different layers of loss that people are needing to kind of process at the moment, and that kind of change of mindset that you had after that conversation with Ashraf as well, and also it's such a powerful example of the transformative potential of education. Like now you've kind of changed your path, and you're hoping to be able to kind of to support people in Gaza in the future through what you're learning now. And this is exactly what 80 plus is hoping to achieve as well. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
So now we're going to hear from Kashif Rashid, who is from the Dundee Local Committee. So Kashif, are you here? Oh, yes. Okay, let me just check. I'm just going to ask you to unmute. Okay. Hi, Kashif. Welcome. Yeah, welcome. We can hear you, so I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just babysitting at the same time as listening in. There's a lot of interesting, I don't want to say stories because it's a lot more than stories, it's lives. So my input to this whole Palestine issue, sorry, I'm going to catch my breath because I just come up the stairs. Here we go. Right. So yeah, so my involvement in the Palestine scene, I'm a father of 6. I've never really been involved actively in the Palestine scene. What I've always done is, like most people, I'll contribute financially. I'll maybe sign, a petition here and there, and that was my contribution. Maybe not understanding it enough, maybe not, maybe it's various factors. But this recent genocide, just about a month before the genocide started, one of my very close friends, his 12-year-old daughter, passed away suddenly. And for me, it felt like almost not just my friend's life, but my own life fell apart because, I was so used to seeing my friend from, a young age of 12. We grew up together, high school, spending a lot of time together, and our families would be spending time together. And then when Sumaya passed away, suddenly it was just a big shock. And, I actually felt probably true pain for the very first time, that a loss of a child, a loss, a friend who's my brother, his loss. And it really, touched my heart. And then that was the 9th of September. And literally, a month later, the genocide started. And it was almost as if God had prepared me to say, look, that was one child you were mourning, the one child who was important to you. This is now, thousands of children. So I then started going to, pretty much straight after the local Dundee Palestine, Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign. They were doing regular, they'd already started. So I started attending it just to see, what can I do to just be involved. And then from there, I realized that there was so much to be done, that now to just say that I'm going to donate £1 or £10 or £100, whatever each person's capacity is, or I'm going to just sign a petition that comes through on WhatsApp, was not enough. So I started getting involved kind of actively on the weekly protests. And then just to put it into context, I mean, I don't take credit for this at all. I give credit to the local heroes who have been doing this for, decades. They've been on the Palestine cause for so many decades, probably, some of them since their teens, and they're now in their 60s, 70s, who I really look up and respect. And again, from all different backgrounds, whether they're Muslim or whether from Christian, Jewish, all sorts of a non-faith. So when I seen these people, I thought, wow, it was such an inspiration that I thought I need to be a part of this journey. and from a religious perspective, especially as many of us, are from the Muslim faith, a lot of Palestinians are from the Muslim faith, and obviously, as we know, Palestine is one of those places where it's many religions come together. So seeing that outside of Palestine in a city so far away from Palestine itself, from Gaza, it's just mind blowing. And one of the things I wouldn't say we're proud of, but one of the achievements that Dundee has is it's probably one of the very few cities that every Saturday at 2 o'clock we always have a protest. We always make sure that we're there together. Sometimes it's hundreds of people. Sometimes it's maybe 40, 50. But we're always here, holding the square, reminding the people, engaging the people to make sure that they don't forget Palestine. So that's kind of where I fit in. There's so many things to say. I think one thing I always say to people around me, especially because I feel quite embarrassed when, especially the few brothers and sisters we've got from Gaza, when they thank me, I feel such an embarrassment that how could you even thank anyone for anything that we put towards this cause, because it's so important. It's at the moment, as people say, it's the single most important cause that in our lifetimes that we need to get involved in. And if anything, I need to be able to, at least during my life, be able to look at my own children in the eye. I mean, my oldest is 17, my youngest is 3. That in a decade's time, when they look back and say, Dad, there was a genocide going on, which we now are here reading in our history books. What was it that you done to contribute? So absolutely, at the moment, having these protests, doing the boycotts, all this is very important. But this project that's going on, and what I'd say to Ahmed, who's the local contact here, when he introduced it to me, was that I'm more than happy to get involved, do my part, but ultimately, we do need to think about the long-term future. These protests, hopefully, God willing, will end. Palestine will be free very soon, and we need to continue that campaign of whatever we can do. But until that happens, we also need, in parallel, these kind of projects to safeguard the long-term future of the Palestinians. And again, many of us who are non-Palestinians, when we look at the Palestinians themselves, it's an absolute inspiration. You just think to yourself, wow, in many ways, I always say we have so much to thank Palestine for. Even like this group of people who randomly don't know each other have got together to do some good. We thank Palestine for that. When you give a donation and towards Palestine, I say we thank Palestine. Even when I get together on the weekend, and I look around and people who I've grown up with, probably walked past umpteen times and never knew the name Jim or Michael or Mary or Mohammed, even from the Muslim community. And Palestine actually brought us all together as if we're now a big family. We thank Palestine for that. So I'll leave it there. I could probably go, the people who know me, I'm a bit of a chatterbox and I can go on for hours. So speak for Britain. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Kashif. Thank you for sharing something about your journey and what brought you into this work, but also for emphasizing the importance of collective action and the importance of keeping education going, like supporting education in Palestine at the moment, whilst also trying to take collective action to stop the genocide and bring down the occupation. Thank you so much for kind of sharing all of that. We really appreciate it. Okay, so we have one more speaker before we move on to the question and answer session. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Etaf Abu Hada, who is a student from Gaza currently studying at the University of Warwick. So over to you, Etaf.
Salam everyone. I'm Etaf Abu Hada, a Gazan student
who survived 2 years of the genocide. In October 2025, I arrived in the UK after securing 3 fully funded scholarships from my displacement tent in Gaza to do a master's degree in cybersecurity engineering at the University of Warwick. I'm talking today as one of the thousands who have seen their lives turn into darkness after we have lost lives, homes, entire cities, and our normal life, which was never normal before. Our schools became shelters. The universities became rubble. Our books were used to bake bread to find something to eat, and our brilliant professors have been intentionally killed. These deliberate actions are an attempt to erase our identities, restrict our minds, and force us to lose hope. This is why we cannot stop learning. We carry out the ways of our martyrs. When a Gazan student pursues his higher education, they are saying, "You killed my teacher, but I'm still alive. You destroyed the classroom, but I will not stop, even from a tent." We are not just studying for our own careers. We are studying to continue our journey for a better future. The Gazan students knew that their role is to exist, to learn, and to excel. Let me tell you what resistance looks like in Gaza. If you go to hospitals, you will find the medical students who haven't even graduated are running toward the wounded to save lives. Go to the shelters, you will find the students from all the majors volunteering to teach the children and support the displaced families. And go to the beach cafes, which are supposed to be for relaxing. You will find hundreds of students who barely could connect to the virtual world to watch lectures, do their exams, write their personal statements for the universities, and submit the scholarship applications. At that time, when my turn finishes in the workspace due to the limited resources, I was just sitting in the beach in the shade of the displacement people's tents, writing scholarship application essays that didn't require internet access, making the most of every moment of my day, which I hoped would lighten the darkness of my future. Actually, we are not here to pretend that the pain is over. We are all wounded, but we will stand together and do everything that can heal these wounds with dignity and a future that still has choices. In Gaza, education has never been a luxury. It has always been our survival. It can travel over borders, cross walls, and survive displacement. The first thing I was thinking about every time we need to evacuate is my laptop, which contains my education, my future, and my proof that I'm still a human. I didn't want to lose my small window to the world while all the doors are being closed. From tents, primitive workspaces with the least requirements of electricity and internet, and even streets, the Gazan students are continuing to secure their seats at the top universities around the world. Hundreds of brilliant minds are trying to create great things from nothing. But why let them fight alone? Shouldn't we all stand together and open the door for them? As one of them, I was telling myself all the time, I don't want to be killed while I'm waiting. If it will happen, let it happen while I'm trying and fighting. By pursuing a master's degree, we are breaking the cognitive siege. We are refusing to let our minds be occupied. A scholarship is a declaration that our curiosity is still alive, that our ambition is still limitless, and that we still claim our right to participate in the global convergence of science, technology, medicine, and art. We are not just surviving, we are reclaiming the right to dream in high definition and building a global network of experts who carry Gaza in their hearts. The scholarship for a Gazan student is not just one opportunity. It's a multiplier. It creates specialists who can rebuild hospitals, engineers who can restore infrastructure, researchers who generate solutions, and mentors who train the next generation. So, one seed is turning potential into capacity, and the students into leaders to be the backbone of our communities. We know that success has no meaning if it doesn't reflect back to the place that raised us. Studying abroad for a Gazan student is a form of a challenge. After losing everything, we are continuing with resilience to be a good representative of our country and people. We are changing the stereotypes of hunger and displacement and proving to all the people that we deserve chances to build ourselves and our country. They destroyed the stone, but they cannot touch our resistance. The world has witnessed our suffering. It's the time to also witness our excellence, as we don't want Gaza to be remembered only for a tragedy. We want it to be remembered for talent, our brilliance, for education, and for people who refused to let a closed border become a closed mind.
Thank you so much, Taf. It's very difficult to know how to respond to that, because that was so powerful, so eloquent. Everything that you said. I think you were talking about, the need to be a good representative for your people. I think anyone here from Gaza who's listening to what you just said, I'm sure is so proud of you, and you're a very good representative in everything that you just said. And there were so many times when you were talking, I was thinking, my gosh, we need to put this quote on the website for 80 plus, because you said so many really powerful things that I think would be just really encapsulate what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve here. So yeah, thank you so much, Etta, for joining us and for sharing that with us. Okay, so now we have come to the end of our contributions from speakers. And so now I'm going to hand over to Khawla, who is going to lead the question and answer session. And I know we've got lots of questions that have been coming in the chat.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you, everyone. I know it's like, how do you respond? How do you respond to all of these things that we've heard? Thank you, Ashraf, for setting a philosophy of education. For when people tell us education is about knowledge and skills, you're telling us that knowledge is about that education is about life and intellectual memory. Thank you, Alex, for your excellent moderation of today's event. Thank you to all the speakers who brought Gaza into the center of the conversations, bringing lived experiences and reflections and memories of things that they've lived, and also what these things have meant for them and for their worldview and their understanding of the purpose of education. I completely agree with Alex when she said you could hear all these powerful statements here and there, and you go, yes, these things need to go on the website, because I feel that what we are collectively doing is we're coming up with a new philosophy for what education is and what education should be about in times of genocidal violence and colonial erasure. So thank you, everybody. What we're going to do now is we're going to spend about 10 minutes or so addressing some of your questions. May I ask people to direct the questions to the Q&A function rather than the chat, so it becomes easier for us to look at the questions, please. So the first question that we have is from Mark. Hello, Mark in Vietnam. Mark is asking a question about whether or not we're planning to organize 80 plus in other countries. Ashraf, can I invite you to answer this question, please?
Well, thank you, Mark. And this is very important questions. I would say for the time being, our mission is to focus on the UK and to establish our foundations in the UK for all sorts of good reasons, and to try to place at least one scholarship in as many UK universities as possible. Now, in the future, long term, possibly, we might start looking into having international branches to 80 plus. That's a possibility. I can't make a decision right on live now. This is kind of like a board decision, and we need to think about it. As long as there's a benefit for students in Gaza, for education in Gaza. I'm sure we can always agree on something. But let me also say that we encourage support and donations from all over the world. So if you are in Vietnam or the US, Canada, European countries, Middle East, please feel free to get in touch and we will find common grounds, whether this is financial donations and support or either like other means of support. We are always open for ideas and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. We have two questions from Ali that are both linked. So Ali seems to have missed part of the seminar, and he's asking, what support are you offering to students from Gaza? Are you providing scholarships, or is it just application mentoring and support with the application process? Can I direct a question to you as well, Ashraf, to pick that up, please?
Thank you, Ali. So we are not offering mentorship service or support. However, we aim, as I explained in my speech, we aim to offer fully funded scholarships for students from Gaza. That's for 1 year taught masters in in the UK universities. This year we are piloting in 3 cities: Manchester,
Sorry, Ashraf. I think I might have muted you by mistake when I tried to let someone in. You might need to repeat the last few seconds.
Okay. So what I want to say is that once details are confirmed, we will communicate them by our mailing list as well as on our website and social media accounts. We will announce about the universities we will have partnerships with, the application process and timeline. We will tell you more. Maybe actually we will organize kind of like a more practical session about the process itself. That's also a possibility, and invite it might be more targeted to students in Gaza, and then we might like kind of like speak in Arabic. I don't know, to be like more approachable for our targeted group in Gaza. But yes, that summarizes our next steps.
Thank you, Ashraf. The next question from Aya, and Basma before that asked a similar question. So someone who had mentored and supported students over the years, both of them are asking a question around, if the competition is too high, how can we develop something strong? How can we enhance our chances of securing a scholarship? I know that this is quite early for us to talk about eligibility criteria and to talk about these things in specific details. But more broadly, what's your advice for applicants who are telling you the competition is very high? How can we maximize our chances? What would you say?
The question for who, Hawla?
I'm directing the question for you, Ashraf, as someone who'd mentored so many students over the years. When it's about competition, how do you stand out?
Well, I want to invite Ahmed, to be honest. Like Ahmed secured 2 scholarships. I know Ahmed as a friend for many years. Ahmed secured a master's scholarship and did his master's at the University of Birmingham, and then he secured a fully funded scholarship at the University of Cambridge. And you got stories to tell, Ahmed. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thanks, everyone. Yes, so to be honest, I have been involved with the students and the scholarships for quite a long time. And yeah, I have myself assist some scholarship applications for some schemes of scholarships here in the UK. To be honest, any assessor would look for how you stand out. Like we will have tens, maybe hundreds of applications, but what makes you different? And that's you need to tell us about yourself, about your story, about your achievements, what makes you different from others, what makes you stand out. So you need to write a story that is coherent and fluent about yourself, that makes you stand out. Sometimes so many people try to like ignore small details. They think they are irrelevant, but sometimes these small details are very important about yourself, about, for example, something voluntary you have done when you were like younger. So you need to think of everything that can add up to your story and make it coherent, very telling, and as I said, most important thing that makes you different from others. Of course, there are other things like your experience, your involvement, your academic qualifications. All these matter. But as I said, of course, there will be scale like certain things like academic qualification, and other things will have like, a fixed, maybe small mark. It depends on the assessment criteria. But I think what's the most important thing is your story, the way you are telling us who you are matters the most, I would say. And then, of course, after that, there might be an interview. If you are shortlisted for an interview, that's another story. But to get to the interview stage or to get shortlisted, you need to tell us who you are in the best possible way. And my advice is do not underestimate the little things that you have done in the past because they might turn into something beautiful and convincing. Thanks, Ashif.
Thank you, Ahmad. We have two questions in the chat. So I would like to invite you, Alex, to take these two questions, please. So Linda is asking, how do we register in 80 plus? What's your advice?
So Linda, Linda, are you asking from a student's perspective or from a another perspective, like somebody who would like to volunteer? If you're asking from a student's perspective, then I believe on the website there's a way that you can sign up to get further information, and then as soon as we finalize our application form and the eligibility criteria, then we will notify students that way. But from another perspective, if you're asking from a potential volunteer or donor's perspective, it's similar in terms of you can sign up to the mailing list to find information about how you can get involved in that way. And also there's a part of the website which focuses on ways in which people can support the initiative. So yeah, but the main thing is that we will keep people informed during through the mailing list.
Thank you, Alex. Ashraf, we have a question from Jackie in the chat who's asking, will you distinguish between students inside Gaza and those who have been displaced outside Gaza? That's a really good question. Over to you, Ashraf.
Thank you very much for the question. Just to add to what Alex just said, because I got people reported back to me that the email address we sent arrived into their junk or spam email. So if you can just unjunk this and just save it into your contacts, make sure that you receive all our communications in the future. As for the eligibility criteria, for that question, it's not finalized yet, but we aim that to support students who are currently in Gaza, as well as those who relocated because of the genocide. But as I said, full details will be confirmed in due time and put on the website. And of course, at any stage in the future, if you have any questions, you can get back to us by email.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. I'm conscious of time, and we would like to hand over to Ahmad to share with us the calls to action. We have a quick question from Ali that I could possibly answer quickly. He's asking if we offer undergraduate scholarships, and the answer is no. At the moment, the focus will be on postgraduate scholarships. Ahmad, over to you now. In the next 3 minutes, people on the call are probably wondering how else can we help in addition to donations. So can I leave the last call to action with you, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Khawla. So I think at the moment, donations are important, but what's equally or even more important at the moment is raising awareness and spreading the word about our campaign because we have just launched. We need to spread the word and get publicity as wide as we can. So I think the call of action, we can divide it into two, I would say, sets of people, like people in the UK who are also divided maybe into two parts, like academics or the people inside universities, like students and the staff. I think for the students, we need to spread the word, launch awareness and fundraising campaigns, work with different societies like Palestine Society, Islamic Society, or all other student societies within the university, try to organize campaigns, awareness, and of course, fundraising campaign. For example, now we have Ramadan. If I know it's a bit late, but if, for example, a student like an ISOC, an Islamic Society Student Union, can organize an iftar within the like a charity iftar where you invite people for iftar, and there is a small contribution they can make towards bringing a student from Gaza. In these events, if you have in your university a student from Gaza who came either from Egypt or directly from Gaza, can attend these events and say how much of a difference this scholarship changed their lives. And we invite the people and tell the people their stories and how can we contribute to bring someone next year to attend these events with us. That is, to be honest, a mind-blowing idea. And that's, to be honest, why I joined this whole initiative when Ashraf called me more than 6 months ago. I was overwhelmed with so many things, but to be honest, I really, really liked the idea and the concept of, if I contribute towards bringing a student next year and this student comes here, it's an amazing thing, isn't it? It's beautiful to see this student coming and I contributed and we see all the people who contributed. It's such an amazing thing and I believed this concept would succeed and that's why we are here. So that's for the student. The staff, similarly, but maybe the staff at a more senior level, they can encourage their fellow staff. They can encourage, maybe they can help us lobby when we discuss with the university administration on lowering the fees, the tuition fees for our students, and help us reduce the tuition fees so that we can, of course, offer the full scholarships. So the staff need to, of course, tell their fellow staff and hopefully help us in the negotiation with universities at a later stage. And there is also the communities, for example, like Brother Kashif spoke eloquently, but we need the communities because this is not only a student or a staff contribution, it's a city, it's a community, a whole community contribution towards raising awareness before raising funds. So we need to raise awareness to just tell people how this concept is valuable, is important, is unique. As I said, the fact that your little contribution might help someone come here, achieve dreams. And of course, I believe in the multiplier effect. So the student you will bring will help a lot of other students, like we are doing when I came here almost 9 years ago. I mean, I'm proud to say that I have helped a lot of students, and Ashraf did, and now Ataf is doing, and everyone is doing the same. So we have this multiplier effect means when you help one student, it's like you helped hundreds. And it's really true. So in the communities, we need to spread the word in our demonstrations, in our protests, in the mosques, in the churches, everywhere, to just organize little events, charity events, awareness events about 80 plus, and we need to bring some students in. Finally, for people inside Palestine and particularly inside Gaza, we need you to share about the campaign, about the initiative, the 80 Plus initiative, in your social media, in your professional accounts like LinkedIn. And also, there is a little announcement here. We also want some social media volunteers. So if anyone is willing to join this amazing initiative as a volunteer to help with our social media accounts, you are very welcome, and please send us an email. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ahmad, and thank you to all of you for joining us today on a Saturday. Thank you for hearing from us, for sitting alongside us as we are collectively aiming to develop a global collective of care that redefines what we mean by education in times of immense pain and immense suffering. Please allow me to invite Ashraf back as the founder of 80 Plus to say his final word before we end this meeting. Ashraf, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Khawla. I just want to thank you, the team, one more time. Alex, thanks for moderating this lovely session, as well as for you, Khawla. And thank you, Ahmad, for the call for actions. Please be reminded that this project is a collective project. And in order to reach real impact and enable education in Gaza, we invite all of you in Gaza, in the UK, anywhere in the world to join our mission in enabling education in Gaza. And for the people in Gaza, we wish you safe days and weeks and months in life. We wish you all the best. We understand that things are a bit tense in the Middle East since this morning, so we wish everybody safety and wellness. And until our next event, thank you very much for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.